9:30 p.m. Central African Time. This is the Globe on SABC News coming to you from Johannesburg. I'm Simphiwe Ngwane. Good evening.
A very good evening to you and thank you for joining us. I'm Lulu Gabu. On to our top story. Zimbabwe has discontinued the usage of foreign currencies in the country. Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube signed the Government Gazette that enforces the use of the country's new currency, the RTGS dollar, alongside the Zimbabwean dollar. The South African rand, Botswana's Pula, as well as the US dollar were all accepted for transactions before the new law. This is Zimbabwe's latest attempt to turn around its economy. The country's inflation is sitting at nearly 100%, the highest since hyperinflation hit. Zimbabwe's central bank says the country's legal tender will be made up of bond notes and RTGS dollars. These were introduced when US dollar banknotes dried up. Bond notes were introduced in 2014, while electronic real-time gross settlement dollars came into effect earlier this year. This new move by the country's finance ministry has been met with skepticism, but Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube has described this as the beginning of restoring the country's full monetary policy.
What was happening in the market is that the market was US dollarizing. It was uncontrollable, and we felt that we needed to bring the situation under control. A few days ago, I had a meeting with the Association of Teachers in this country as a union, along with His Excellency as well as other ministers. And they made it very clear to us that the multi-currency regime has become a US dollar regime. They don't earn US dollars. They cannot afford to buy things in the shops. They can't pay for medicines and healthcare services, where the hospitals and clinics are demanding US dollars. Quite clearly, it became an untenable situation. It became necessary for government to move a lot faster and introduce a monocurrency regime with a domestic currency. The domestic currency obviously comprises our RTGS dollar as before, as well as the bond note and bond coins as before. So nothing has changed really in terms of what we're calling domestic currency on this occasion. All that has changed is that the only legal tender domestically at the moment is now the domestic currency and not foreign currency of the US dollar. What does this mean? It means that anyone who wants to buy goods from a shop, pay for services within the borders of Zimbabwe, ought to go to a bank, or to exchange or some other institution to change their foreign currency into domestic currency and spend that whichever way they wish to spend. That's what normal countries do. That's what all countries do.
For an insight into these latest developments, we now joined on the line from Harare in Zimbabwe by Economist Prosper Chitambara. A very good evening to you, Mr. Chitambara. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, this law is ostensibly meant to turn the economy around, but can it really?
No, I don't think it's going to do that. I think what we've already seen, the immediate reaction from that is that the erosion of confidence. I moved around a number of things today, and there were long queues of depositors scrambling to draw their US dollars. So I think it is really unsettled and unleft the market. And also the power market rate has even depreciated further even today. So the black market premium continues to worsen. So there's a loss of confidence in the economy, which is actually not good for the economic prospects of the country going forward.
I mean, given the current situation in Zimbabwe, can the country afford to have its own currency and, of course, sustain its own currency in the long term?
Well, we can't actually, because to sustain a local currency, you need to have certain macroeconomic fundamentals in place. You need to be a growing economy. Now, the World Bank, in their latest global economic prospect report, have actually projected that for this year, the Zimbabwean economy is going to shrink by minus 3.1%. Look at our inflation. Inflation is hovering around 100%. And look at our investment to GDP ratio, it's around 8%. Look at our savings to GDP ratio at around minus 1%. Our import cover is at 0.1%. And also, people don't yet confidence in a local currency. They don't trust a local currency. I think the memories of the Zim dollar, what happened in 2007 and 2008, are still fresh in the minds of most economic agents in the country. So introducing a new currency actually risks disaster, in my view.
Now, would the new law have any effect on the value of the Zim dollar against the other currencies which have been outlawed?
Yeah, we've seen today that already that on the alternative market or the black market, actually the RTGS dollar actually depreciated to around 13-14 RTGS dollars to $1 US. So it's already depreciated, and we're actually projecting that those trends are going to continue. And the black market premium in Zimbabwe has been a major driver of inflationary development. Businesses that had to resort to the black market to secure foreign currency in what critical need. And also introducing a full-fledged local currency after now gives the government unfettered and uncontrolled access to the printing press, which, as we know, tended to result in hyperinflation. And it print money without a commensurate increase in productivity, as is the case now. Our production levels are hovering around 5%, and any further increase in money supply is going to result in Zimbabwe actually fast towards hyperinflation. Already we are in chronic high inflation territory, which is normally a precursor to hyperinflation.
What does it mean then for people who need the services in Zimbabwe or need to buy goods? Do they have to go to a bank to exchange those notes, or maybe to a bureau de change?
Also, what it actually means, they've now liberalized the foreign exchange market. There's an interbank market. So ordinarily what they have to do is to go to the bank to buy US dollars or South African rand. But owing to scarcities of foreign exchange on the formal market, they have to resort to the black market, where they have to buy foreign exchange at rates that are as high as 18 RTGS dollars to $1 US.
Do we know what the value of the new currency is against the US dollar?
On the official market, it's on average about $7 to $1 US. But on the black market or the current market, it's averaging about 18 or 18 RTGS dollars to $1 US.
Because of the current situation in Zimbabwe, will it be sustainable having this kind of currency in the long term? How likely is it that it will strengthen in value or maybe depreciate in value?
I think it's unless and until we bring back confidence, we restore confidence through a track record of institutional reforms. I think one major issue that concerns some of us is the fact that our central bank is also not independent. When you have a weak central bank and you introduce a local currency, definitely that's a risk for inflationary pressures to be generated, which is likely to result in hyperinflation.
You know, analysts have been saying that the foundation of any successful currency is trust. So a piece of paper, a piece of monetary paper is worthless if people do not trust it. People have to trust that currency in order for it to work. And if that trust evaporates, so does the value of the currency. Do Zimbabweans trust the current administration that they do have the gravitas to turn the country's economy around?
What has just happened is eroded that trust, because it has actually made shown that the risk of policy reversals in Zimbabwe is very, very high. That is actually eroded. It has eroded public confidence and credibility within government and also in government policy. So there's a higher likelihood that more policy spending of this data could even be announced by government going forward without any necessary consultation and dialogue with the stakeholders, namely business, labor, and also society.
All right, Mr. Chitambara, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. That was Zimbabwe economist Prosper Chitambara speaking to us live on the line from Harare in Zimbabwe.